So just a brief summary of where we began yesterday, namely, along with what we termed as the proclamation of Jesus, which is in the first chapter of the Galilee section, termed as summary. Here, the summary is a proclamation, and the proclamation is made in verse 15. However, before the proclamation can be made, Mark prepares us by giving us 4 indicators or 4 pointers. These are a time indicator, a place indicator, a form indicator, and a content indicator. It is only after that that Jesus speaks in the Gospel of Mark, and for the first time in Mark 1:15. And what does Jesus say in a summary form? He says, the kingdom is here. This is the indicative. This is what takes place first. This is what has happened, and because the kingdom is here, or because the kingdom has come, or because the kingdom is present, how must we respond? We must respond by repenting. So what is important to note is, in the proclamation of Jesus, the kingdom comes before the call to repentance. In the proclamation of John, the call to repentance came before the proclamation of the kingdom. So in a way, the proclamation of Jesus is exactly the opposite. It makes the proclamation of John stand on its head, you might say. The second part of this first chapter is concerning the disciples. And here in chapter 1, verses 16 to 20, we encounter the call. And the call is narrated in a 5-part sequence where Jesus passes by, and when he sees them at their work, they leave their work when he calls to them, and they follow Jesus. This is the case with both the calls, namely to the first set of brothers, Simon and Andrew, and the second set of brothers, James and John. Simon and Andrew are casting their nets into the sea, which could refer to the evangelical or the outward aspect of the ministry of the disciple of Jesus. James and John are mending their nets, and this could refer to the internal aspect of the ministry, healing the breaks and the breaches within community. In this part of the call, unlike in others where the disciple would go in search of a rabbi, here it is Jesus who calls the disciples, exactly the opposite of the usual tradition. They give a negative response by leaving behind their former life, and a positive by following Jesus. And this following is to a new mission, to a new way of life. And then we have come to the third part of the first chapter of the Galilee section, namely where the kingdom comes with authority. Already, when Jesus comes into the synagogue, we are introduced to his authority. And the people are taken up with his authority because his authority is not as the authority of the scribes. And so therefore, basically, the question is, his authority is not as the authority of the scribes. So what does his authority consist of? We see his authority in action in the next scene, which is an exorcism. The exorcism has got a number of aspects which we notice, namely that the demons recognize Jesus. They know both that Jesus is from Nazareth and they also know that he is the Son of God. Now, the demon uses the plural us, because even though there is one demon which has possessed this particular person, this demon uses the plural because already in the beginning of the gospel, Mark wants to indicate that with the coming of Jesus, the whole satanic kingdom is at war with him, and the whole satanic kingdom will soon be destroyed. So it is not so much the exorcism of one person or the exorcism of one demon from one person, but it is a challenge to the whole demonic world. And the demon which possesses this man in the synagogue knows this, and that is why it tries to distance itself, saying that there is no connection between Jesus and the demonic kingdom. Jesus' kingdom is quite different, so already an indication of this challenge which is going to take place. And once again, at the end, we are once again reminded of the authority of Jesus, which is an authority which amazes the people. So all of them were amazed, and their response is that it is a new teaching. Now, this phrase might be read in two ways. The first way is this: what is this? A new teaching with authority. The full stop after authority. I repeat, what is this? A new teaching with authority. Then he commands even the unclean spirits and they obey him. That is one way to read it. Another way is, what is this? A new teaching? With authority, he commands the unclean spirits. I think that the first way which I mentioned, namely, what is this? A new teaching with authority. That is the better reading according to me, even though the RSV has chosen this reading, because it is not only Jesus commanding the demons with authority, but he also teaches with authority. So it is better, as far as I am concerned, to read it in this manner. What is this? A new teaching with authority. So his whole teaching is with authority. And then he commands. He can easily command the unclean spirit. There is no need for his authority to command the unclean spirits who will obey him. And so therefore, the teaching of Jesus was a new kind of teaching and came with authority. Authority over everyone. It even extended to the demonic forces who were forced to accept that they had been pushed away. The question now is that while there might be cases of a person being possessed, there are other kind of demons which we need to take note of. These are the demons of selfishness, of self-centeredness. And during these days of the pandemic, the demons of fear, the demons of despondency, the demons of depression, the demons of frustration, the demons of becoming negative, interpreting situations negatively, these are the demons and these are the temptations. It is so easy today to become negative because it is now 6 months and we still see no hope. It is now 6 months and we are still groping in the dark. And so therefore, there might be the tendency to say, what is the use of all of this? Why should we continue? Should we not just give up? Should we not just give in? Be given to despondency. Now this, for me, is a very, very strong demon which might try to take possession of us. And the moment that demon takes possession of you, the negative attitude which you have will spread to others. So what is important is we continue to look optimistically. We continue not to allow these demons to possess us. And the way we can do it is by taking one moment of one day at a time. So we do not worry about tomorrow. We do not worry about later. We do not worry about the evening or the afternoon. We simply situate ourselves in the present situation and respond now. And you will notice, if slowly you develop this attitude, the fear drops, the despondency drops, the frustration drops, the anxiety drops, because you're living fully in the now. With the power of the Lord, we will not allow these demons to possess us. Now notice the first phrase, and in Greek is kai, K-A-I, kai. It's a conjunction. So what we can notice is that Mark is joining two incidents together by use of this conjunction and. Another word to notice here is immediately. The reason why Mark uses eitos, immediately, is because Mark wants to show that Jesus is literally rushing through. There is no need for immediacy. Notice here. Why should we say, and he left the synagogue, would be fine? And immediately. Nothing happened in the synagogue that made him leave immediately. No, but Mark uses these terms often in his gospel to show the urgency. Jesus is rushing up and down, healing everyone who comes to him to be healed. The first healing after the exorcism is of Simon's mother-in-law. Notice again, Simon is still called Simon and not Peter. He'll be called Peter in chapter 3 when Jesus names them. And after that, always Peter until 14:27, when Jesus goes back to him after prayer and addresses him as Simon. His mother-in-law lay sick with a fever. And they told him. So in this particular narration, we come across what may be termed as the three classical points of a miracle story. So usually in a miracle story, which is narrated by the synoptic gospels, there are basically three parts. The first is the case is narrated. Now in this case, there is a request for the healing, because if we look back at the text, what we notice is now Simon's mother-in-law lay sick with a fever. And again, immediately they told him of her. Now, this telling him of her seems to indicate they asked him to heal her. Because simply telling Jesus that she is sick will make no sense if they do not ask him to intervene and to help. And so here, the case is narrated. The second is the cure. Except in two miracles, both in the Gospel of Mark, 7:31 to 37, 8:22 to 26, Jesus does not use external methods in the synoptics. In Matthew and Luke, there are no miracles in which Jesus uses external methods. Both of those are in the Gospel of Mark. In John, in chapter 9, he will put a paste in the man's eye and tell him to wash in the pool of Siloam. That's a different story altogether. I'm talking about the synoptic gospel. There are only two in Mark, 7:31 to 37 and 8:22 to 26. Here, the cure is simply taking her by the hand and lifting her up. This lifting her up prompts some to see within this healing as resurrection terminology, because the verb used is egerein. Egerein is to lift up, to rise up. And so they see, but it seems too early in the gospel to attribute this lifting up or rising to the resurrection terminology. And third is the confirmation. So there is the case narrated in a typical miracle story. There is the cure, which is in all cases except two, both in Mark, done simply by a word or by a small action. And third is the confirmation, where she got up and served them. Notice, there is no need, as far as Jesus is concerned, to use external methods. The fever leaves her completely, and diaconai is basically what a deacon has to do, serve. So those who are going to be deacons are basically servers. That is basically what healing is for. Healing is for service. This miracle is also narrated by Matthew and Luke. But you notice in Matthew, they don't need to tell Jesus, because in Matthew, Jesus needs to be told very few things. He's aware of most of the things. He's almost in Matthew like above the ground, like an avatar. He knows almost everything. He asks very, very few questions. And what is more important is that after Simon's mother-in-law is healed, she does not serve them, she serves him. Because in Matthew and for Matthew, service is offered only to the Lord. Luke narrates this miracle as an exorcism. And so therefore, Jesus rebukes the fever. Now, my brothers and sisters, the fact that you are listening to me, the fact that you are able to do this course, the fact that I am able to give this course to you, the fact that you either have an iPhone or you have a laptop or you have a desktop or you have an iPad or some gadget through which you can hear me and see me, already puts you and me in the top 5% of our country's population. The fact that most of you, if not all, are in places where there is a decent internet connection already puts you and me in the top 5%. During these days, there are so many of our brothers and sisters who are going through tremendous ordeals. In this regard, I salute the lay people, because notice, as seminarians, as religious, as people who belong to a congregation, you and I are taken care of. You and I do not have to worry at all about the job. Am I going to be thrown out of my job? Will they declare me redundant? Will they declare me surplus? Will I get my pink slip tomorrow? And then if I'm out of a job, what will I do? Am I capable of traveling for 4 hours, even if it is 3 times a week, simply to reach my place of work? I look back at those who are in my parents' home. And the reason why I use parents' home for the seminarians or the religious is because that is your parents' home or your sister's home. Your home is meant to be the seminary where you are. So when you go back to your parents' home, look at how they are managing. Supposing in your parents' home, you may even have a one-bedroom flat, let us say, which is quite a luxury in the city of Mumbai. But supposing you have that, and two people from the family are positive and have to self-isolate, what will they do? Two people, there's one bedroom, there is one hall, there's one kitchen. Where can they isolate? So when you look at this situation, your heart has to go out to them. And so therefore, because you as a seminarian, as a religious, are taken care of, your response must be never to take your health for granted, never to waste time. Because you and I do not have to struggle for our living, it doesn't mean that we can waste time. Take a 2-hour siesta in the afternoon. Because I had a good meal, my stomach is full, and now what to do? I'll have a good sleep, a good siesta. That is not the way. But unfortunately, it becomes the way because there is no challenge. No one challenges us. No one talks about this. Everyone is too afraid to talk about this. They say, oh, we have given up so much. You know, for me, my brothers and sisters, married men and women are the real saints. They are the real saints because they go through so many challenges already in the relationship. Second, they go through challenges when there are children, the bringing up of the children, the feed of the children, the taking care of the children, the expenses. That is only a small part. The psychological and other parts are even so much greater. And so they are the ones who show us your life as a seminarian, my life as a priest is an easy life, easy. No tension whatever. No anxiety whatever. You and I are the only ones who can say that in the year 2030, if we are alive, in the year 2030, if we remain priests, we will get our lunch at 12:30 in the afternoon. No matter what the price of onions and tomatoes is, we will get our salad on the table. But a lay person cannot say that. There are so many who are dipping into their savings today. And the savings are depleting because even the banks are taking them for a good ride. So there is nothing to fall back on. And so, what is my response? How will I, as a seminarian, as a religious, because I have all of these facilities, how will I respond? Will I ensure that I do not waste time? I do not mean that you do not require your rest. I do not mean that you do not require your relaxation. I do not mean that you do not require your entertainment. You need all of these and take them. But if you're going overboard, simply because there is no challenge for you, then you got to check yourself. Then you got to keep on examining and take it up in your examine. And that's why I believe that even if someone does not pray, it doesn't matter. But if you examine regularly, you keep catching yourself. Forget about others challenging you. Very few will challenge you. Very few, because everybody in the same boat as you. How can they challenge you? If they tell you something, you'll say, but look at you. So they are scared of that. And so therefore, I'm challenging you, my brothers, my sisters, to look at your lives. See the situation in which you are. See the privileged situation in which you are. And respond. Respond courageously. Respond where at least one person in a day, one person in a day is boosted because of you. It could be, my brothers, my sisters, through a telephone call to a companion who's undergoing some depression, to a friend who has called you and wants to talk with you. It may be whatever. You're scared to go out, don't go out. As you've got to take care of yourself, and when taking care of yourself, you're taking care of others. That's good. But you can, within your situation, you can do so much more. And this is what I'm exhorting you to do. Do not look back later and say, oh, I should have, I could have. No, but your response must be, I did. That evening at sundown, notice now Mark usually likes to give these two references, evening and sundown. So evening can be, of course, early evening, but he's telling us it's later evening. That is meaning after the sun had gone down. So both references are given by Mark. Often he says that day in the evening. So two references are often given by Mark. Here also notice there are two references. They brought in all. Now usually by using this universalizing all, Mark is doing two things. First, he's showing the popularity of Jesus. Second, he's showing the universality of the mission of Jesus. So by using all, there is no distinction which is made. There are sick and there are possessed with demons. So Mark makes two distinctions here. One is there are sick people. So the sick could refer to the ones with physical ailments like deafness and dumbness and lameness and paralysis and blindness, and possessed. As we saw, there are people who are possessed by demons who act in a particular manner. And again, notice the exaggeration. And the whole city, how is it possible for the whole city to be gathered about the door? If it is one house, one home, how can the whole city gather there? But this is Mark's way of telling us and insisting that Jesus is becoming popular and is being accepted. Now, all of this is very important for us because of the next verses which Mark will speak about in 135. We will see. So what we notice here is that Jesus is popular. All who were sick. And now, as far as Jesus is concerned, for the first time, we notice the command to silence. And notice, Mark gives us the reason for the command to silence. If you look at the bottom of this slide, and he would not permit the demons to speak. The first time in the Gospel of Mark 1:34, we are given the command to silence technique. That is, the not allowing demons to speak. And Mark here gives us the reason. Why would Jesus not allow the demons to speak? Because they knew him. In other words, Mark is saying Jesus does not want to be known through the lips and the words of demons. So they knew him. Let them know him. But they must not communicate who he is, because he does not want to be known. Whoever he might be, whoever they think he is, he does not want to be known through their lips. By adding, because they knew him, this is what Mark is telling us. So the first time, notice the command to silence, and it is given to demons. Now this universality of Jesus, this popularity of Jesus is the background to what happens in these verses. And what happens here, and this is what I just spoke about, examination of consciousness, discernment, looking back at my life. And notice here, in the morning, notice again a double time reference, a great while before day. That means early morning. Mark could have said, and early in the morning, or even before dawn. He could have said simply one reference, but Mark gives two. He likes to give two. And in the morning, a great while before day. That means before the day begins. The day would begin at 6 o'clock, but that means before 6 o'clock. He rose and went. This lonely place in English is from the Greek eremos. Now here, it is not translated desert. So eremos is translated depending on the situation. So Mark could not say, even though he uses eremos, it is not going to the desert to pray. No, but the desert, the eremos, is a metaphor for being alone. Just secluded. And the seclusion is both physical and spiritual. So to a lonely place, and there, here, the first of three references which Mark gives about the prayer of Jesus. 135 is the first, 6:46, and 14:32 to 42. Three times in his gospel, Mark shows Jesus praying. Twice, he does not give us the content, but even those twice, we can conjecture, we can find out what the content is from what has happened before and what will happen later. That is in 135 and 6:46, we are not given the content. In 14:32 to 42, we are given a fantastic and extraordinary lesson in prayer, including the disposition of posture, including the words when we pray, including the attitude that we take to prayer, including our response after we have prayed. Here, the going away to a lonely place, the background is the popularity. We just saw the whole city has gathered. We just saw everyone who comes to him is healed. We saw he can heal the sick and the possessed. Now, this popularity is possibly getting to him. Should I remain here? It's so wonderful to be here. Let me remain. It's so nice. People accept me. People love me. People need me. Notice again, people need me. That's another point we need to watch for. Is it the need of people or is it my need? That people may need you, that's not, we're not denying the fact. But it may also be more your need than the people's need. And there he prayed. So Mark only tells us about the prayer. So first, what Mark is saying, that Jesus goes to be by himself, both physically and away from the crowd. And notice, Mark uses a very, very strong word. When he speaks about Peter and the disciples, what do Peter and the disciples do? The Peter and the disciples, they come there and they hunt him down. This verb, katadioko, is used only here in the New Testament. Nowhere else would you find this verb. It's a very, very strong verb and must not be translated simply as Simon and his companions went to look for him. No, the literal translation ought to be Simon and his companions went to hunt him down, because Simon and his companions found that it is so comfortable to stay. They found that it's so wonderful to stay. And they say, come on, everyone is looking for you. Why don't you stay here? Look at how popular you are. Look at how the crowd accepts you. Look at the good that you are doing. Look at the number of people you are reaching. Sometimes we need to discern about this. When the response which you are giving is more your need than the people's need, you need to watch. Again, it does not mean that the people do not need you. It does not mean that your companions do not want to hear from you. All of those things are good and it's lovely and it's required, but you have to sometimes have priorities. In this case, the people need Jesus. There is no doubt that there are sick and possessed here in this situation, there is no doubt that they would need to be healed. There is no doubt. But if Jesus remains here, he cannot do what he has to actually do, which is to proclaim the kingdom to all. Not to be restrictive, not to be parochial, not to be narrow. And so, even though there is this danger of wanting to remain, even though there is this desire of saying, yes, the crowd need me, Jesus makes a discernment. So we can say that the content of the prayer of Jesus, even though Mark doesn't give it to us, we can say it was a prayer of discernment. A prayer, should I remain? Should I go? I'm so comfortable here, but is comfort what is required? So every one of us, my brothers and sisters, when we are doing good, we were doing fantastic work, wonderful work, good work. Supposing you were to tell me, Father, every day I call a friend of mine who needs me to boost him or her up. That person is going through depression. That person is going through despondency. And every day the person wants me to call him or her to boost them up. I say, good. That's a very good ministry. However, slowly what you must try to do, as Jesus does here, try to make the person self-dependent and not dependent on you. Now, this is the discernment. If Jesus had remained there, what would happen? The people would become dependent on him, and they would not even do what they are meant to do. So Jesus very clearly is aware that unless he goes, they're not going to grow. So why it is true that you will help, you will call the person, you will communicate with the person, you will maybe write an email, you will send a WhatsApp, you do whatever is required, good. However, slowly as time goes by, you must also be available for others. So if this person is taking up so much of your time, that is not available then for others, you need to watch. Second, is it your need more than the person's need? And I do not mean in any negative sense. No, I feel so nice because I've really saved somebody from doing something rash. I feel so nice. I've really boosted up a personality. I feel so good. I've done such wonderful work. All those feelings are also the challenge. When they keep becoming too much, and when they become the only thing that you're looking for, and the help becomes by the way, then you need to watch. Jesus is aware of that, and immediately he moves to other towns as well.